6 of the first 10 kinnis that we're going to say, we'll say them all. 6 of the first 10 kinnis this morning start with the word Eicha. And Eicha is the word of Tisha B'Av. That's how Yirmiyahu chose to begin what he wrote about Tisha B'Av. Eicha. How can it be? Because that's the question of Tisha B'Av. Eicha. Eicha yashva b'adad. How can it be the city that was the glory of the world? Yerushalayim is called an ear from Lashon of Or, to wake up. People would come to Yerushalayim, and from the experience of coming to Yerushalayim, walk away changed. Ask Yirmiyahu, look at it, it's empty, it's destroyed. How could it be? The Gemara Gittin says, Nebuchadnezzar, when he came to attack the city, he says, how can you attack these walls? How can you break the walls of Yerushalayim? How can you get through? Eicha, how can it be? Look at it, it's destroyed, it's empty. How could it be? That's the question of Tisha B'Av. And it's almost 2,000 years later, and we're sitting on the floor, and I ask the question again. How can it be that we're still sitting on the floor after 2,000 years? This is an intimidating thing to have to do. Because you look around this room, and there are people in this room who are among the finest Talmidei Chachamim that we have. Balei Chasodim, Mashpiei Torah, Mekaravim, Melamdim, people who care, people who work, Machnisei Orchim, who have guests in their house every single Shabbos. How can it be? We're still sitting on the floor. How can it be? We're good at giving mussar. That's what we do. It's only people who really care, who want to be better. So we're going to give mussar. But today's not the day for mussar. Today's the day to turn around and say, we're good people. How is it we don't have a Beit HaMikdash? How is it we go to the Har Bayis and we see a mosque on top of our Har Bayis? How can it be? How can it be that we're afraid to go and stand outside of the outside wall of the Beit HaMikdash to be able to go down, and we're afraid? How can it be? How can we still be doing this? I don't have an answer, but I want to give some suggestions of what we could at least think about this morning, this program. There's a famous story of Sam Sofer. Sam Sofer would go into his little room, Erev Tisha B'Av, and think about the Churban, and he'd cry. And he'd fill up a glass with tears. When he ate his Suda Mafsekes, he would dip his bread in the tears. Over 25 years ago, Rav Pinkus Zatzal told over that story. And then he looked around the room and he says, Rabbi Isai, if I went on Tisha B'Av morning this year, 25 years ago, with a glass through all of Yerushalayim and Bnei Brak, would I find a half a cup of tears? That's the problem. And it's not our fault, but it's the problem. How could it be? I'll tell you what the problem is. It's a Gemara. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that we mevatel megillas tainis. Why? Because just like needle in dead flesh doesn't have any feeling, so too we don't feel anything. Ask the Gemara, no. Dead people feel it. The Tisha explains, what that means is that when the Shama sees its body being eaten up by Toloyim, it's like the needles in the flesh of a person. He says, no, I mean a person who's alive, who has part of his skin that's dead, and you stick a needle in it, and you don't feel anything. That's what we're like. the ability to be able to feel. It's the ability to be able to care. From Zava Yerushalayim, anyone who mourns Yerushalayim will be zeicher to see it rebuilding. But it's Zelu Mazeh. If you don't care about the tragedy, you don't care about the simcha. People don't care. And then life passes us by. Life passes us by. Rabbi Yaakov Horowitz from Project Jess, they asked him once, how's Klal Yisrael doing? How are we doing? He says, it's like a chasana. If you're in the middle circle, it's gewaldic. You're with the chasen, everyone's dancing, it's very lebendig. You move to the next circle, all right, people are still into it. You move to the third circle, it's all the old men shuffling along, trying not to get hit by the photographer, just Yitzhak. Then you have the people sitting at the tables. Then you have the people outside talking on their cell phones who don't even know there's a chasna going on. And I say, and each circle gets bigger. That's the nature of concentric circles. The more you move out, the more there are people who don't even know there's a chasna going on. It was during the Second Intifada, in the middle of it. There was somebody in the Israeli media who decided to ask me off the record what I thought. What did I think? My opinion. I said, you're missing the story. You're missing the whole story. Do you realize the nisim and the flows that are going on? The nisim and the flows that are happening? A car filled with explosives in Geula was spotted because it was parked illegally. I understand if it was parked legally. It's parked illegally, and that's how you spotted it? That's how you stopped it? Guy Yasharim saw a suitcase attached to a cell phone. He figured it was a bomb. So he pulled out the wires. They arrested him for tampering with a bomb. He says, well, did you know what you were doing? He says, well, there were a couple of wires. You pull them out, probably stops. Pull it out. Psagot, mother got up in the morning to get her baby from the crib. There was a bullet lodged just above the baby's head in the crib. And so it went. That's to take away a moment from the tragedy. But the nisim and the flows. Yesterday, an Arab took a tractor and smashed it into a bus, turning it over. He chose an empty bus. And he chose Erev Tisha B'Av because otherwise there would have been hundreds of Talmidim from the Mir who that bus would have smashed into. Nisim for the flows. The mayor of Ashkelon said, we were hit with almost 200 missiles. That's like an earthquake. You know how many houses should be destroyed? You know how many people should be dead? I don't want to take away from who we are. I can't remember. And I remember the Second Lebanon War pretty well. And I remember the First Gulf War pretty well. And I remember the last Gaza War pretty well. My kids went to bake cookies for the soldiers. They asked us, please stop. We have too many cookies. We don't know what to do with it. I spoke to a soldier who's they called up in reserves. He didn't go in yet. He says, I'm putting on weight. Forget about the cookies. There are people coming down to the camps to cook up shawarma and to make schnitzels and to take care of us. There's an outpouring from Klal Yisrael. We can pour out everything and every chesed. The only thing we're lacking is a heart. We just don't feel anything anymore. And as Yitzchak Isaac Sher says, Rosh Shimon Gamliel was one door after the Churban, and he said already, we have to mevatel Megillas Tainus because we don't have a heart anymore. Say the Chazal, 3 people use the Lashon of Eicha. Now there were other people who use the Lashon of Eicha. You can find it in other places in Tanakh. Obviously it wants to make a connection. Yirmiyahu, Eicha Yashva B'Dod, how can it be that Yerushalayim sits empty? Yeshayahu, how can it be that the city that was so faithful and was so good is filled with murderers and liars and cheats and thieves. The Eich of Moshe Rabbeinu. Echa esa levadi. How can I handle by myself all of your problems and your cases and your troubles? Let's set up a court system. Now, obviously, if you follow backwards, the Eich of Yirmiyahu is, how could it be that Yerushalayim is destroyed? And the answer has to be the Eicha of Yeshayahu, because you people became dishonest. And how did that happen? Because Moshe Rabbeinu says, let me create a court system. That's in Parshas Yisro. That was a great idea. Sari Alofim, Sari Meya, Sari Chamishim. That was a great idea. So Rashi says, when the people said yes, Moshe Rabbeinu said, that's the problem. Wouldn't you rather learn it from me, that I suffered for this Torah 120 days? I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't drink. I heard it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wouldn't you rather hear it from me? And the answer is, not if it's too hard. Why is this in Parshas Yisro B'chlal? It happened after Yom Kippur. It happened after we had after Parshas Kisisa. I think it's part of Matan Torah. Because Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't know what to do. They don't want to listen to me. And he says, don't feel bad. They don't want to listen to me either. Because that's the Rashi in Parshas V'eschanan that we're going to read this Shabbos. At Tidaber. You weakened me, says Moshe Rabbeinu, because I saw that you weren't willing, charedim lihizkarev me'ahava, trembling out of love, to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because it was hard. It was definitely hard. Every time HaKadosh Baruch Hu said one of the Dibros, they died. It was definitely hard. I don't even want to hear from HaKadosh Baruch Hu if it's too hard. I don't want to hear from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't want to hear from Moshe Rabbeinu. I don't want to do anything. Rabbi Salanta once said that the 11th commandment is don't be a nar. Today, the 11th commandment, talk to anybody today, is take it easy. Take it easy. I don't need all this. I don't have to put up with this. I don't need these problems. That's the problem. Everything's too much for us. Shabbos is too much for us. And Pesach is too much for us. Could you imagine there's a Beit HaMikdash? And you have to bring korbanos and you have to worry about Tum and Tara? Forget about it. We got too much on our plate as it is. We can't handle anything. It's too much for us. To shed a tear for a tragedy. When I was learning in Koilel, so there was an Avreich, very choshev Avreich. And I overheard him saying to somebody that he was going to Moshav Matasyahu for Tisha B'Av. I said, what's there? He said, Rabbi Lev speaks about the different kinnis. So I said, it's not enough for you just to sit on the floor and say kinnis? You know, you're a choshev guy, talk. He says, this is the only way I find inspiration on Tisha B'Av. So I said, I have to go. And I started going with my friend Rabbi Margolin, and we would go and listen to Rabbi Lev year after year. And it was out the door, literally out the door. They had to set up speakers outside. And one year we're driving back, and Rabbi Margolin says, there must be enough talent in Har Nov that there are so many people who want to be able to take advantage of this, who should be able to. And he put together this program. And the very first year, I asked my friend Menachem Nissel if he would speak, and his attendance at this event has been better than mine. He's sponsoring this morning in memory of his father, Shabtai ben Chaim Menachem, Hashem Hashem and Aliyah. And we found people coming together. Because we're searching, we're desperate to be able to feel, to be able to chip away. I had a heart attack in a bypass operation a little over 6 months ago. And one of the medications, that I was taking made me very emotional. And whenever I would speak about anything, I would tell any story, I'd start crying. And I felt like I had to keep apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The medicine. When we left one year, told a particularly emotional story. I'll never forget, one fellow started crying, but sobbing. Sobbing like, I remember when I was a kid, and you'd go on Tisha B'Av mourning, and there'd be people saying the kiddos used to sob, and he was sobbing. And people were shushing him. They were shushing him. Because he's interrupting the program. By crying. If desolate says Mashiach ben Yosef will come before Mashiach ben David. Why? Because David from Yehuda represents the Rosh. And Yosef represents the heart. And Mashiach is not going to come intellectually because we understand. We're going to feel it. It's a strange thing. It's happened to me more than once after this program. Somebody would come over to me and say, that was such a powerful and beautiful program. I was so moved. I can't wait till next year. And I understand. If you know what it is on Tisha B'Av morning to feel something, that it should be something that moves us, we don't want to let that go. But don't you understand? When we reach Yerushalayim, the way it's supposed to be, our mouth will be filled with laughter. It's going to be what it's supposed to be. We're going to live the life we're supposed to be. A real chasana, not just the middle circle. We'll be living in a real chasna in the middle circle all the time because people will be caring. Everybody in this room does the right thing. I'm not worried about that. There's a part of our heart that we have to open. And at the end of this morning, we can feel something. Something that we can shed a tear over. If we can realize, Eicha, how could it be? We're sitting here in the Neve Yerushalayim. You know how many thousands of girls have passed through these doors and were educated and were inspired and changed their lives and lived Torah lives? I got a scary letter from Rabbi Refson. I wasn't the only one. He says, because of various factors, the financial situation is such, we might have to close. Could you imagine? Talk about a churban? I'm sure everybody will do whatever they can do to help, but could we shed a tear? That something as important as this could end? Kadosh Baruch Hu watches out for us. We do what we can. On Tisha B'Av morning, we have to say to ourselves, I will not accept this situation. Eicha, how can it be? Just because I've gotten used to the fact that if you drive through the streets, they throw rocks at you, or shoot bullets at you, or fire missiles at you. And each time we come up with something else, so we put grates on top of our car windows, and then we get bulletproof glass, and then we get an iron dome, and we keep coming up with some other way to stop it until Kadosh Baruch Hu says, what do I have to do so that it makes an impact on you? I don't want to kill you. I want you to stop and look and say, I don't have to live this way. Yeah, but we have a good army, and we have Iron Dome, and we have world support now. More people are on our side, and that's not the point. We should be sitting, not on the floor, We should be walking up the steps to Yerushalayim, up the steps to the Beit HaMikdash, bringing our korbanos, being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being able to have that experience where we care, where our mouths are filled with laughter and true happiness. That's what we're supposed to have. And if we don't have that, I don't care what else we have. Eicha, how can it be? How can it be that Jews can be dishonest and immoral? Only if we don't care. How can it be we can accept a situation like this? Only if we don't care. Mitzvah Hashem, all of the people who have given their time this morning to share with us words and insights, to try to touch our heart, try to chip away a little hole, for us to be able to look at all the chasodim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us, v'chol eisa v'chol sha'ah, nisim v'neflos, that sense of appreciation, that sense of a window into what could be, should inspire us to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, die. The army said, die, don't send any more cookies, we have too many. I only remember another time in history when that happened, when an organization said, stop giving us stuff. You ever hear how many times it's stuck? It says we have too much money, stop. When we were building the Mishkan, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, stop, we have too much stuff. It's enough. And we're at that point right now where we are approaching life at the point that we could build that Mishkan again. Chadesh Yomeinu Kikedem. Bring back the days. That's how we finish Eicha. Bring back the days as it was. Bring us back to where we're supposed to be. This is wrong. Kadosh Baruch Hu should give us the strength this morning that we can open up a little window so that we're filled with enough disgust that we say, I don't want to be this way anymore. I want Klal Yisrael to be what they can be. And Amir Hashem, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha V'Nashuva Chadesh Shemenu Kekedem.